You're enjoying Racing World. It's brought to you by Perspective Group. It's your global motorsport podcast show brought to you in conjunction with Race Control Magazine.
Even more driver movements, the final NTT IndyCar race of the season, the final SuperCar event at Pukekohe. It's Racing World for the first week in September. Well, here we are, and what better place to start than the continual battle of who's going to be where in 2023. So let's start with Formula One. What we now know, Daniel Ricciardo definitely gone, Oscar Piastri definitely in at McLaren. That's now sorted and resolved. So Lando Norris has a new teammate for 2023 and beyond. The rest of Formula One has a few kind of twists with it still, and it stems back to the remaining seat at Alpine. Now, should Pierre Gasly get released from AlphaTauri, which Red Bull have said they won't stand in his way, so that's fine with them, so that's going to happen. It's now up to whether or not Alpine accept him, which I think they will in the long run. I think there's just a bit of game playing going on there. The next part of the puzzle becomes who goes to AlphaTauri, and the hot news all week has been the fact that Christian Horner and Dr. Helmut Marko want Colton Herta. Now, the Andretti driver does have a clause in his contract to enable him to get out of IndyCar for 2023 and join a Formula One team, so that is possible. The issue still is the super license points, which personally I think they're being very pedantic about, because at the end of the day, if you can drive in the Indy 500 and win multiple races in IndyCar, surely that must make you fit to drive in a Formula One car. It's not like you're just someone who's come from club sport racing. So I think the FIA need to reevaluate that situation, and right now Colton Herta becomes number one property for AlphaTauri should all that house of cards fall. Where's that leave Kiwi New Zealander Liam Lawson? Don't really know. It all comes down to so many things, and so much of it is timing. Right place, wrong time. We know that years ago when Scott Dixon looked at Formula One and they had Mark Webber in the Williams BMW team at the time, and for a German team they didn't want two drivers from the South Pacific, so that was kind of one of the factors that played into the equation with Dixon in Formula One all those years back. Should Herta not go there, but Gasly still moves, then who gets that remaining AlphaTauri seat? That will be a very interesting one to see. Lawson obviously you would think would be a candidate for that. Yuki Tsunoda, however, has still got to justify his existence at the team, so there's a bit going on. Where does Ricciardo go now? There was a rumour the other day that maybe he would become a Mercedes reserve driver. Not altogether a bad move, really, in some ways, because Lewis is on the end of his career, you might say, so maybe that's a good option for him. Certainly better than taking a drive, I believe, with Haas or even Williams, but time will tell on that. Then we turn our attentions to IndyCar. So what happens there? Well, Alex Palou should settle next week with Chip Ganassi Racing, and we'll see an outcome on what happens there. But right now, the chances of Alex ever getting to Formula One with McLaren seem to have diminished with Piastri getting there. So the best scenario you would think then would be the McLaren IndyCar team. But then what happens to Rosenqvist? Obviously, he'd end up back in Formula E, and I think that's a waste. So big red cross to you, Zach Brown. That shouldn't happen. However, Palou's got himself in this situation now that he can't get out of. He's got bad blood at Ganassi, and he's at the whim of McLaren, so time will tell on that one. What else do we know? McLaughlin this morning signs a multi-year contract with Roger Penske and Team Penske for multiple years in IndyCar. Don't know how many years, but he's there, and he's there for a while. So I think Penske very smart when they plucked McLaughlin out of Australia, and he's more than delivered this season for them. So he's a long-term driver now with Team Penske. So that's one you can take off your radars for quite some time. So if Alex Palou was to move to McLaren or end up with a year off, who gets the number 10 seat at Ganassi? Very hard to know, but once again, I'm putting my money out there and I'm saying that maybe Chip should go shopping for David Malukas. But again, we'll see. We will see. But Malukas is saying there are things in the wind with his future. He hasn't said what, but I would be picking that one of those as a drive for Chip Ganassi Racing. Now, the other part, of course, is if Colton Herta goes to AlphaTauri in Formula One, which I think he should go, actually. I really do. I think it's time for him. There's been enough talk about it. Let's see what the kid can really do. But then who gets that coveted drive at Andretti Autosport? And no one's thought of that. So maybe that could end up being a place for Alex Palau. Who the heck knows? There's a Honda connection there, but suddenly there'll be a spare seat at Andretti, and I'm sure there are plenty of people trying to get a drive there. Speaking of drives, Juncos Hollinger Racing announced this morning that they will be a two-car team in 2023 in the NTT IndyCar Series, so there is an extra drive available at Juncos Racing. Don't forget, they bought all the assets up of Carlin Motorsport when Carlin went back to Europe and folded its IndyCar team, so they've got plenty of resource there. Long odds, I wouldn't mind betting that someone like Marcus Armstrong goes shopping there. I don't know why, but that would not be a bad place to go, actually. It's a great entry path into IndyCar, and it would suit Armstrong. I'm certainly not saying that that's going to happen, but it would be one to watch out for. And if it does, well, again, you heard it here first. The rest of IndyCar, well, that's pretty stable right now. The only other thing, Hunter McElrea re-signed with Andretti Autosport for Indy Lights for season 2023. Great move by McElrea, back with the same team for next year, and this really gives him a title shot at the Indy Lights title next year, and I think that's a very smart move. It's done early, it's done and dusted, and now he races for the remainder of the championship, which is this one round at Laguna this weekend. And then that's done and dusted, and it's the all-important battle for second. I think McElrea will probably end up coming third, and I think that that's a great first season in Indy Lights. Big step up from Indy Pro and, of course, USF 2000. Speaking of USF 2000, both Billy Fraser and Jacob Douglas finished for the season. Great performances from both of them at Portland, and it was really good to see, so I'm very proud of them. So no driver movement announcements as such there, but let's wait and see. So that's the driver movements for yet another week all around the world. Ultimate round of the NTT IndyCar Series for 2022, and some teams tested there a couple of weeks ago, and of course Team Penske was one of those, so I think there was some benefit going in, and we'll see whether that pays off this weekend at Laguna for Chip Ganassi Racing, because that's where they tested. But for McLaughlin, it was a great performance. He took the maximum points haul for the whole weekend, and it keeps him in the title contention. Sure, the odds are a little bit slimmer, but he is still a title contender, and only his second season in IndyCar racing. I think that's a great testament to how the Kiwi has transitioned from a tin top career and a multiple champion in a tin top career to now becoming a future IndyCar champion. There's absolutely no doubt about that. And I spoke to him after qualifying at the post-qualifying press conference just to get his feeling on the weekend.
Yeah, I played rugby union and AFL when I was younger, and then I was getting bashed up and I needed to focus on my racing career, so I gave that up.
Let's take some off Zoom. David Turner, you can probably add to the rugby discussion. Go ahead.
Well, I can, and this will cheer up Scott McLaughlin anyway. All Blacks last night against Argentina in Hamilton, 53-3, so that was not a bad turnaround for them.
Oh, perfect. Thank God. They needed it. Rocket up their butt. That's all good.
Yeah, they certainly needed it. Question for both you guys. I'll start with you, Scotty. First of all, congratulations, another pole position this year. Great season. How beneficial was the test that you guys had at Portland in contributing to that factor?
Well, I think just being able to rock up here with, a philosophy that you believe in and then just massaging it throughout the weekend has been, vital. We weren't stellar here last year as a team. And we needed to, we focused, we called this test, early in the year that we were going to come here. So yeah, hopefully we get to Laguna and our cars aren't too bad and we made the right choice coming here and focusing on that, and we have a good race tomorrow. But yeah, it's been vital in terms of just, being able to get a nice base and then just, like I said, charging it and getting better as a driver and pushing the limits. And I think going 1, 2, 3 in qualifying was a good test of that.
Yeah, no, great stuff. And then, Will, just to you, just quickly, we talked about this last year several times when things were a bit tougher for Penske, shall we say. And we talked again at Indianapolis this year, and the captain's moral of hard work equals rewards. So what we're seeing now really is a contribution of almost what we were talking about 18 months ago. The hard work is now starting to pay off for Team Penske, isn't it?
Yeah, honestly, nothing much has changed on the, road and street course side of things. Even the only thing the thing that we worked on hardest was the Indy 500. But honestly, last year we just had a lot of kind of weird, unfortunate circumstances that resulted in the team not getting many wins. And this year it just seems like we're executing on all fronts, in the pits, on strategy, obviously car setups. And they're really, we haven't found something magical. It's just, doing solid work and Probably having Scott in his second year helps as well. So you got another guy giving feedback and good data with his driving. So just as a group as a whole, we're just stronger on all aspects, but nothing magical was found. We didn't really go into last season saying we were off the pace. We just had kind of a bad year.
Well, congratulations to both of you in terms of the front row, and that puts you in a great position for tomorrow to at least see the green before everyone else, and look forward to seeing that. Very sorry I can't be there to be with you all, but have a great and safe race.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thinking about you, David. Thanks for joining us.
And to the race itself, well, everyone behaved themselves. IndyCar was smart enough to start the field just a bit back further than right at the traditional start-finish line to hopefully eliminate a mess at turn one, and that's exactly what didn't happen. So that was great move by IndyCar, and the race settled into quite a strong rhythm. It really played itself out, and it was really, for our championship contenders, is about seeing just where they could put themselves amongst other traffic. Dixon taking full advantage of it near the end when there was a full course yellow, and moved himself all the way up to a podium position in third. Once again, the Iceman saying, I'm in this championship and I will be in it right to the wire. So great move from Dixon. Again, the traditional last half of the season, the last quarter of the season, he's strong. You can never rule him out. And again, I've said it before, he must be just absolutely ruining the fact that those double points and the big double points at Indy slipped away from him this year, because then he would have been even further up this championship. For Will Power, it was a great performance again, but I spoke to Scott McLaughlin at the post-race press conference, and I also caught up with Scott Dixon.
Their car was phenomenal. Got a good start. Just for us, it was just the whole day, weekend went to plan. We rocked up with a car that was, just needed a massage, like I said on Friday, and then, I was able to just work on myself. And then qualifying come around, we put on pole. We saved a set of tyres, reasonably good set of tyres for the fast six. We used that, did the right lap, got the pole. And then I knew today that, my first stint was going to set everything up, and that's exactly what happened. So I'm not sure what happened behind me, and I knew I couldn't control what was behind me. All I could do was control what I did, and it went to exactly the plan.
Playing off that, our friend David Turner down under texting us a question about, for you, Scott, particularly Chip's philosophy of never give up. Certainly you've seen that with you and this team this year, and even in the last 21 laps when you restarted 6. So maybe just what that means when Chip's going around the paddock area saying don't give up.
Yeah, I think it's it's a pretty easy motto to stand by, and even on I think it was like 3 or 4 laps to go, he's on the radio, he's like, go get him, and I was like, okay. So he was pretty fired up, which was I even had a little bit of a chuckle after that one, but that's Chip's deal. He's probably the most competitive person I know. I always say the 2 most competitive people are Chip and my wife, so I get it at the track and then I get it at home. So. So it's a fun team to be a part of. When I sensed that as soon as I walked through the door in 2002, back in 2002. So it works for him.
So suddenly the 7 contenders that we had going into Portland become 5 going into Laguna, and realistically in many ways that 5 becomes 3, and that's Will Power, Joseph Newgarden and Scott Dixon, and then on the outside edges Marcus Ericsson and of course Kiwi Scott McLaughlin. Now there's a lot of scenarios, but basically Will Power has a 69% finishing record of 4th place or higher this season. Will only needs to finish there again and the championship's his, regardless of where other people finish. He's relying on them finishing further down or himself, and he needs to be down around the 16th or 17th place position, and the others to win the race and maybe even take bonus points for this championship to slip away from him. Stranger things have happened, and Laguna will be a track that could provide that. Grip level at Laguna, nowhere near what Portland was. A lot of sand and grit and stuff at Laguna, so it's going to be a totally different type of thing. We'll see tyre degradation being different, so there's a lot of variables. I caught up, however, with Marcus Ericsson to get his thoughts on going into Laguna.
All right, so Laguna coming up this weekend, final race of the year, back in the number 8 Husky Chocolate car, and we want to go out strong. We still have a chance on the championship, so all we can do is to go there and try and win the race and then see how things shake out. So I'm excited. I feel like we're going to have a strong package there with their testing a week ago, and we had a good test there, so really looking forward to it. And like I said, when I finish the season strong, a win would be nice. That's what we're aiming for.
Well, Ericsson held that championship lead for quite some time, and of course a lot of that was the benefit of the Indy 500 and the double points from there. But he's done a great performance this year, risen to really strong contender within the Ganassi camp, and it's a more mature Ericsson, I think, that we've seen than other seasons in IndyCar, and it bodes well for the future. I think Chip's onto some good solid drivers there, and Ericsson can certainly count himself as one of those, regardless of how this championship plays out. Now, also, just before Laguna, had the chance to catch up with Mike Hull and Tim Cindric, both effectively team managers for the respective teams, Chip Ganassi Racing and Team Penske. And for Hull, I always enjoy talking with him, hearing what he says, and it's great to hear his philosophy on how these championships play themselves out.
I think the simple answer, Dave, is that we just never give up, number one. But you can't just take that attitude without having resource in great race drivers. We had 3 race drivers, frankly, that have had a chance for the championship here, and now it's down to 2 of ours. We're excited to be in this position, particularly racing on the same racetrack and in the same race as Penske Racing. When I went to work for Chip in 1990, a long time ago, 92, we just wanted to be in a position like we're in today. That's what we worked toward. And I would just say personally that Roger Penske, for me, was very instrumental in my career when I was a young guy working in IndyCar racing. He helped me a lot. He went out of his way to give me advice and to give me direction and really create stabilization for me. I was a bit of an outlaw, and he really helped me a lot. And I'm really happy that I have a chance to race at Laguna Seca personally as well as professionally with our team. And we're looking forward to Sunday. And we never count ourselves out.
Very much enjoy listening to Mike Hull. It always comes from the heart, but it's very much a clear message that comes out of Ganassi Racing, always has, and Mike's a great leader for that team, just as one day Blair Julian will take over, probably, maybe even that role. But, we've got Kiwis across that team as well, and it's great to see. On the other hand, of course, at Team Penske, we've got lots of Kiwis, and the man of the moment, of course, is Scott McLaughlin. And I talked to Tim Cindric just about how they value having McLaughlin in the team now.
Really, for him, it was a bit of a risk to say, "Hey, let's jump over and do IndyCar." I think he probably had more confidence in doing something with a roof over his head. But he was certainly attracted to racing in America, and really hadn't considered too much about IndyCar until we talked to him about how he thought that transition might go. And I think I've said before that I had a pretty good conversation with Dario, just because I think he made a similar type of transition just to see if we were crazy, because I felt like after spending so much time with him in Australia that, he had the ingredients really to drive any kind of race car and be successful. Kind of the one unknown for him more than anything else was what's oval racing going to be like, because oval racing was something that he had never really experienced or whatever else. And when I look at really the way in which he's approached the ovals, and, that, I guess that controlled aggression that you have to have for the ovals, and you combine that with inexperience. And, I think some of that's shown at Indy, the past couple of years, but at the same time, he's been right there at the forefront, and, certainly competitive and knocking on the door at every one of them. So that's the one that was the kind of an unknown in my mind as far as how he would adapt, not in terms of talent, but in terms of his confidence level. And, he reached that confidence level pretty quickly. And, I think everybody's seen really what we saw in him when he won those 3 SuperCar titles for us.
So there you have it, really. 20 points behind the leader are Newgarden and Dixon. That's the chase for the title. Easy way to work this out if you're watching or listening to this race when it happens on Monday in New Zealand, or Sunday if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, will be if Will Power finishes ahead of those guys, he wins. Really, really easy way to work it out. Forget all the bonus points and all of that scenario. So long as Will Power is ahead of everyone else, he wins. And based on that 69% finishing record of podium or of 4th place positions or higher, then you've got to say he's in with a good chance. And I think Will deserves it this year. I really do. He's driven a very, very smart season campaign, and that's a great thing. And then just quickly before we go on this rapid fire show this week, have to say goodbye to an old friend, been here since the 1960s, and that's Pukekohe Park Raceway, which hosts its final V8 Supercar event this weekend. Many, many great categories out there. Toyota 86 with the richest prize pool ever for a Toyota 86 race in this country. Great to see people returning to that series as one-offs. My great mate Connor Adam is back in an 86. In fact, it's his old car. He's there as a one-off. Peter Vodonovich is back as a one-off as well, a former series champion. So I think the 86 racing will be great. And of course, the V8 Supercars will be great as well. As Pukekohe farewells the Supercars for the final time, and then the curtains come down on Pukekohe in the first quarter of next year. It was a great place to be at. I remember all those years at TVNZ that I was lucky enough to be the executive producer of the broadcast coverage in conjunction with another great friend, Murray Lomax, the former producer at Network 10 in Australia. And when I had a great relationship with Murray, I missed so many of our chats that we used to have on the phone. There was a lot of sarcasm in them, but there was a lot of great camaraderie as well. And we enjoyed so many years at Pukekohe together, and I'll never forget those. And we transformed Pukekohe into what was a fairly bland place into a supercar event. And I certainly remember that very first event there and the crowd just coming to the occasion. And of course, Murphy taking the win. And that was 1 year before the bridge arrived at Pukekohe as well. So we bid you farewell this weekend at Pukekohe. May a Kiwi take out a podium spot, or may Kiwis do what they did in IndyCar next week, or Australasians clean sweep the podium. Maybe this time round it'll be Kiwis that clean sweep the podium, because it's a supercar event after all. It'll certainly be a fitting farewell. Let's hope the weather holds out as well. But I'm really pumped up for this IndyCar final. It's going to be a great thing. And once again, the NTT IndyCar Series comes down to the final race of a season. Fantastic. We'll talk more about Formula One next week, because of Ferrari, they're back at their home ground this weekend for the Italian Grand Prix at Monza. Boy, the fastest Formula One race in the entire season. They really, really must perform. Or will Danny Rick come out with another classic McLaren win like he did just several years ago, and the only person to win in McLaren in ages? Wouldn't that be a very fitting statement for Danny Rick right now? Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed another edition of Racing World. Really look forward to bringing you the whole summary on the IndyCar season, and of course the Italian Grand Prix next week, and any news that comes out of Puke. Until then, stay safe. Don't forget, I really appreciate the comments. Really, really do. Read them all. Try to reply to them all. Just stay safe out there. COVID, our enemy, is still around. Most of all, share, like and subscribe to the podcast. It means a lot to me, and it will continue the growth of Racing World.